Hey everybody, Foreplay is the name of the game. Today we're talking about this. I'm Dr. Diane, board certified sexologist as well as libido expert. And I want to talk about foreplay because there's a couple things that I see with foreplay. One is that so many times people are avoiding it because they think their partner is not that interested in foreplay or there's not time and they've just seen porn or movies where it's just this kind of wham bam, thank you ma'am, I'm out of here type of sexual experience. And there's so much more to it than that. And two, oftentimes I find that when it comes to foreplay, people aren't talking about it, so people don't even know what to do. And it's just a couple kisses and move on when there's so much more that we can do to really make a sexual experience sensual and loving and connected and caring and fulfilling for both partners. So in what's upcoming, I am being interviewed by Jessica Preston with New Health TV show, and we're talking all about foreplay. Let's get started.
We're back with Dr. Diane Mueller, naturopathic doctor who works with women ages 35 to 60, going from average to awesome in their health, hormones, and relationships. Welcome back, Dr. Mueller.
Thank you, Jessica. Another great day.
Another great day is right. So I would love to talk with you about foreplay. We've talked before about how foreplay can be leading up to from the week prior or however that may be. So I'd love for us to talk a bit about foreplay.
Yeah, foreplay is so important, and we're going to throw out some stats and some surveys on the importance of it, but I think one of the things to start with is to piggyback on what you just said, which is foreplay oftentimes we think of as that thing we do right before the big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to begin to redefine foreplay. So couples that find that they are pleased with their foreplay experience oftentimes describe foreplay as everything that's happening from one intimate moment all the way in between another intimate moment, right? So it's the simple things such as rubbing a partner's shoulder or a back when we pass them in the kitchen. It's a simple thing such as sending a couple flirtatious texts to them while they're at work. Mm-hmm. All these types of things are actually considered foreplay. So that's the first phase, is bringing some of that kind of beginning new relationship energy back into things, that novelty that we experienced in the beginning. And we do that by taking foreplay, not just this thing that we do in the bedroom a few minutes before the big thing, but actually bringing it more into, hey, how are we actually flirting? How are we relating to our partner throughout the days in between where we are actually truly intimate?
So a lot of our audience is probably watching and they're in a spot where they have been in longer term relationships, and if that's the case and they haven't been experiencing this flirting from time prior to the big thing, how do we help them starting to incorporate that into their lives?
It's a great question, because especially if we haven't been doing that, or in situations where people may have gone weeks or months or even years between having sex with their partner, this can really feel awkward. Right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing to understand is it's normal. It's normal if you're like, wow, I haven't done this with this person and this person has become my best friend, or really care about them. And then you go into doing this, and if you feel awkward, you're right on track, right? It's supposed to feel awkward, and there's just like a level of like, if this has been something not in your normal life, that we just need to accept of like, oh, just like any new skill or any skill that got put on the wayside and we can bring it back, there is going to be a level where it just doesn't feel normal in the beginning, and just going with it is one of the first steps.
So I would think adding in laughter, understanding that there might be that awkwardness, and you could have some of that, like embrace that piece of it as well.
Absolutely, like keeping it playful, and even coming back if it feels safe at a later time, being like, wow, I sent that text, and just like naming it sometimes, like naming it with your partner, and like, sent that text and it felt so awkward. And sometimes when we even name it and normalize it and talk about it at another point in time, we can laugh and it can be light and bring some like silliness to it as well. So that's definitely one really important thing. And then I think another thing, and this is where, some various relationship institutes will call it things like meeting your partner, matching your partner, bidding on your partner, which basically means that we want to, if our partner is reaching out and they are doing something that is a foreplay, flirting type of thing, we want to make sure we respond, right? Because one of the things that happens that I think is not talked about it enough is we can actually be in a very serious, loving relationship and still feel rejected.
Yeah, that is not talked about, but bidding is exactly the term. It's
Right.
exactly it, a bid for affection, a bid for love. And that's a great way to put it, where it doesn't hurt feelings. It's a bid, and we need to respond to those bids that we receive. That's very important to know.
Exactly. And so it can be one of those things, like say you get a flirtatious text from your partner and you're in the middle of work and you're like, oh, this is cute, but like I can't even respond to that. Of course, a level of understanding, right, for each other around like, we are bringing this into the day. This is a new thing. But as soon as possible, and even if it's not till that evening, being like, when we see that partner, is just saying like, wow, I did not respond to that. But wow, this is like what it made me feel. And so it doesn't, if you can make it happen right away so that person isn't left hanging, that's great. But also there's, with the bidding, I think an importance for allowance, and that allowance around like understanding that this is a new thing for that other person. Everybody is oftentimes learning in this, so some of that allowance and acceptance is important too.
I don't think that people realize how sensitive they are to their own partner they've been with for 10 years or 20 years, or that is the person that is your person that you're so connected with, and that it can really impact you so strongly. So I think that conversation is probably key to say, I'm going to send you something, especially if what's that conversation look like for you?
And that converse around like the question is around like foreplay,
right, or let's start flirting, texting. We haven't done that before. How does that look like for you?
There's different ways, right? So sometimes it can be as simple as like having, like we talked about scheduling sex, right?
Yeah.
So I also talk in my work about intimacy escapades is what I call them. And it's really not just about sex. It's about, hey, having these nights where we're just actually going to take the time to connect soul to soul, heart to heart. And it can be a really great time in that kind of container, in that safe space, to say like, well, I really want to bring flirting back. What were some of the favorite ways we flirted together when we were first together? Or what have you seen to be something that maybe turns you on day to day that you've experienced in your past that we've never talked about? And so just raising that question, and the cool thing about this is you get to create that experience together. So that can also make it a lot safer, because if you have this conversation in advance and say one person says something like, wow, I really like, dirty texts or flirty texts, and the other person's like, that just might throw me off my day, I can't handle that. Then you can go into the conversation and say, okay, well, maybe during these hours it doesn't work. Well, what about during these hours? And you get to like co-create what your foreplay looks like together. And of course with this, there has to be that level of like tolerance around not taking offense if you offer something to your partner and they're like, well, that actually doesn't work to me, right? There needs to be some sort of like tolerance.
Yeah.
But it can actually be like this sort of exercise on one of these sexy escapades nights can actually be a great thing that leads people into a more intimate experience, even just like talking about how they're going to experience foreplay.
Well, and so we've talked a bit about foreplay leading up. It can take, a week, it can take days, it can take hours, to that night that you're going to spend together. And then let's talk a little bit about foreplay. Now it's that night. Okay, we've led up to that night. Now it's that night. So let's talk a bit about how foreplay is going to be able to enhance that space for a couple.
Yeah, this is much more around, I think, what people think of as foreplay, right? So what's important to realize is men and women both like foreplay. Like what we see in surveys is that the average amount of time that couples spend in foreplay is about 5 to 7 minutes. And women, as far as what surveys say about how much foreplay they want on average 19 minutes. Men, 18 minutes. And this, when I read this, made so many things helpful for me, because it's so easy, I think, as a woman, and one of the things I've experienced is like this almost like feeling that the man does not want foreplay and that it's just like there to, kind of provide something for me. And so I have found myself, and I know other women I've worked with have seen the same around like moving quickly to get to that final sex act.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, this is why we're here, and everything else is just to get there. But when we actually realize that, oh, this is something that both men and women really love and really desire, and in surveys we see that both partners in a hetero relationship want more of this.
Yeah.
It really allows us to then take that change to say, oh, there is benefits, and then we can slow down. And the other cool thing is, in an earlier episode, we talked, about the arousal cycle, and sometimes women needing to drop in for 20 minutes in order to actually feel aroused. Well, if we spend more time in that foreplay, which is what innately both people generally want according to surveys, then by the time we're done with that, then typically the woman is dropped more into her pleasure center and is more aroused, and everybody wins.
This is wonderful. So we have just a few minutes, but what I would love to talk about, so for foreplay, touching, kissing, touching all over the body, all of this, men and women. But I know you have a model here with us, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about the clitoral foreplay that we have discussed before off camera, because I think it's very important.
Yeah, I'll grab my model, because one of the things that is very unknown to a lot of people is that the clitoris is not just this head, it's not just this bulb. So like we're looking at a female pelvis, so you can kind of see the angle. So if I flip down, now we're looking at, so this is the anus, this is the vagina entrance, this is the urethral entrance, so that's basically where we pee out of, and this is the clitoral head. And essentially with this, one of the important things to understand is the clitoris, which has about 7,000 nerve endings, is not just this little head. It's not just that nub. It also has these crus. They're like these legs, and you can see them all the way down here and all the way down here. And so think about this, like all of this area is also part of this huge amount of erectile tissue. So we want to make sure we're not paying attention to only this part, but this part. And then we also see, if we turn kind of this to the side here, and we see this part, so now we're looking at the inner lips, and this part here that's in this model in blue is this spongy tissue that is essentially very, very similar to the spongy tissue of a male, where it engorges, right? More blood comes there, and it allows for more sensation, and it's also very, very, very tender. So one of the important things with understanding this is really understanding that when we're talking about health, when we're talking about foreplay, we want to make sure that we are encapsulating and exploring all of this and getting direct feedback from our partner about what they like, about what feels good, about faster, slower, to the right, to the left, any of these different things, because oftentimes we leave out so much of our pleasure and so much of our pleasure zones that are really related to getting us in the mood, but also just to feeling great.
And exploring that pleasure can lead to lengthening the time of that foreplay so that you can get to that 18-minute, 19-minute time frame.
Yeah, exactly. And the question around what do you do, it really is, it's like, yes, let's think about all of these different areas of the pelvis, but let's remember also that tissue all over our body is capable of experiencing pleasure. The nipples, the elbows, the feet, the knees, the neck. So, just really slowing down and allowing you to explore light touch, deep touch, soft kissing, harder kissing, getting that feedback from your partner about what they like. But really, you can really leave no part of the body untouched, of course, with consent and that feedback from your partner.
Thank you so much for all of this information. You'll be back with us next week.
Yes.
Please let everyone know how they can reach you.
I want to invite you to my 4-day Better Sex Jumpstart. That is right. My goal here is in 4 days, you will be having better sex. And since Love Day is coming up here very shortly, we are doing this live, and I am doing this Jumpstart for free. So in the show notes, you will find the sign-up link of how to have better sex in 4 days, step by step, with yours truly guiding you through the process. Make sure you get that coupon code. You will need that coupon code to bring the price down to 0. But we are going to go very, very deep and very, very thoroughly into a step-by-step process to really launch you into better sex coming up soon. Don't miss out. I have no idea if I'm going to be doing this again live or not. So this is your opportunity to get this for free. Please take advantage. I can't wait to have you there, and all the sensual, juicy yumminess. Women, men, partners, all invited. So please come. It'll be so wonderful to have you, and I will see you there soon.